So, a lot of people want to know more about the mark of the beast and who the antichrist is and all this other stuff about, the end of the world and everything. And the movies that come out don't really help too much in describing what's going to happen because for the most part it's just Hollywood. It's not biblically accurate or based on fact. It's more just based on what makes a good movie. So I'm going to start with some biblical verses where it talks about these things so we'll know it's true and not just a director making a good story so it can sell at the movie theaters. So most people are familiar with the concept of the mark of the beast and the number 666 being the number of the Antichrist. So, but a lot of people don't know exactly what the Antichrist is and what the number means, all these different things. So I have some notes on the side that I'm going to be reading. So if I'm scrolling and taking a while to find things, just bear with me. So I'm going to start with Revelation chapter 13, verse 18. It says, "Here is wisdom. Let him who has understanding calculate the number of the beast." The beast that we're talking about is the Antichrist. "For it is the number of a man. His number is 666. So from this verse in Revelation 13:18, we know that the Antichrist is a man. It says, "For it is the number of a man, and his number is 666. So as I scroll down, okay, here we go. And then Revelation, we're going to learn some more about this beast, the mark of the beast and the Antichrist. Revelation 17, verses 3 through 5 say, "Then the angel carried me," this is John speaking, "carried me, John, away in the spirit into a wilderness. There I saw a woman sitting on a scarlet beast that was covered with blasphemous names and had 7 heads and 10 horns. The woman was dressed in purple and scarlet and was glittering with gold, precious stones, and pearls. She held a golden cup in her hand filled with abominable things and the filth of her adulteries. The name written on her forehead was a mystery." This was the account of John when he was recording the vision that he received. And this verse may sound confusing if you don't know what the different symbols stand for, but a lot of people try to interpret things and just make it kind of like fit what they want it to mean, but the Bible interprets itself. Later on, after the vision, it explains what the symbols mean. I'm not going to go into all that right now, but you can check it out on your own. But according to the Bible, a beast always refers to a kingdom or a nation. A woman always refers to a church. So we know that the woman is a church and the beast is a certain kind of kingdom. And what we learn from this verse is that the woman is dressed in gold, purple, scarlet, and she basically is very rich. So this church is a very rich, decadent church. And the name on her forehead is a mystery because when John received the vision, it hadn't come to pass yet because it was about the future. So he didn't know what she was called or what it was. You might be asking, okay, what about the 7 heads and 10 horns? And I'll be getting to that in a minute. I'm going to give a little bit more information still about this beast. Revelation 17, starting verse 6 says, "I saw that the woman was drunk with the blood of God's holy people, the blood of those who bore testimony to Jesus. When I saw her, I was greatly astonished." Still John talking. "Then the angel said to me, 'Why are you astonished? I will explain to you the mystery of the woman and the beast she rides, which has the 7 heads and the 10 horns.'" So we know that the woman is a persecuting power because it says that she is drunk with the blood of God's holy people. Revelation goes on to explain itself further. In verse 9 of chapter 17, it says, "This calls for a mind with wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 hills on which the woman sits." So the 7 heads of the beast that the woman is riding represents 7 hills. So automatically think, okay, the beast represents a kingdom or a nation that is known for being on 7 hills. If you're curious to figure this out, just Google the city of the 7 hills and see what you find. The seven heads also represent seven. This is still verse 9. It says, "This calls for a mind with wisdom. The seven heads are seven hills on which the woman sits. They are also seven kings. 5 have fallen, 1 is, the other has not yet come. So the beast, which represents a kingdom or nation, has 7 heads, which are 7 hills. So the kingdom should have 7 hills or be known for 7 hills." And you'll find a couple of different results for that. But historically, Rome is known as being the city of the 7 hills. It goes back to the time of Romulus and Remus and the founding of Rome and all this stuff. Okay, so back to the verse where it says, 5 have fallen. 5 other kingdoms have fallen before this beast, before this new kingdom arose. The 5 kingdoms that had fallen in the time of John, when he received the vision, let me just read it again so you know what I'm talking about. It says, the 7 heads are 7 hills. There are also 7 kings. 5 have fallen, 1 is, and the other has not yet come. So 5 have fallen, 1 is, so that would be 6. 5 plus the 1 is, and the other has not yet come, so that would be 7. Okay, so we're looking at those 7 heads, and 5 of them have fallen, 1 is, and 1 has not yet come. Okay. So the 5 that have fallen before the arriving of this beast was Egypt, Assyria, Babylon, Medo-Persia, Greece, then Rome. Rome is the one that is right now, and it's also called the city of the 7 hills. So know that we're talking about Rome right now. The current kingdom, when John received the vision, was Rome. That's why it says the 1 is. This was approximately Rome was established between 168 BC through 476 AD. What else? Let me scroll. I'm sorry. Yeah, Christianity at this time was very young. It was just beginning to spread through the world. And the reason why it was spreading through the world was because the early Christians, like Paul and the disciples and the early churches, they were being persecuted by the Roman powers, and which caused them to have to spread out and escape persecution, which actually led to the evangelization of the world. So, okay, yeah, back to the 5 that have fallen, the Egypt, Assyria, Medo-Persia, Greece, and all that. The Revelation goes on to describe the next ones. The 6th, the 7th, and the 8th. We know that the 6th one is Rome, the one we're talking about. The 7th one has yet to be named. It says it's not happened yet. So Revelation goes on, where it says 5 have fallen, 1 is, which is the 6th. The other has not yet come, the 7th. When he comes, he must continue for a short time. The beast, that is, and is not yet, is also the 8th, and is the same as the 7th, and is going to perdition. Perdition means being judged and condemned. So I hope I'm not losing you guys. So the 5 have fallen. Those are the kingdoms I mentioned before: Egypt, Assyria, Medo-Persia, and all those. The one that is Rome, and that's the 6th. It says the one that has not yet come is the 7th, and it says when that one comes, the 7th, he must continue for a short time. Then the beast that we're talking about, the antichrist and the mark of the beast, all of that is not yet. The 7th that has not yet come is also the 8th. So the 7th one and the 8th one are the same one, and that is the one that is referred to as the beast, the antichrist. So that's just giving you some background. Okay, so here we go. We remember that the 6th one that we're talking about, Imperial Rome, was from 168 BC to 476 AD. So after that, we'll be moving on to the 7th one. What institution arose in 538 AD? Does anybody know? Well, that would be Roman Catholicism, or the institution of the papacy. The Bible actually predicted how long the papacy would reign in Daniel, and is also referred to more vaguely in Revelation as it will reign for a short time, but it's more specific about exactly how long in Daniel, but I'll get to that later. Let's see. In Daniel 7:7, it says Daniel's talking about the same beast that John is talking about, but he just received the vision in an earlier time because he came before John. Daniel was living in the time of Babylon, and John was living in the time of Rome. So they both had the same vision regarding the same beast, just recorded in 2 different chapters, each giving a little bit more detail. So Daniel talks about this beast in chapter 7, verse 7, and it says, "It was different from all the other beasts that were before it, Egypt, Assyria, Medo-Persia, and it had 10 horns. I was considering the horns, and there was another horn, a little one, coming up among them, before whom 3 of the first horns were plucked out by the roots. And there in this horn were eyes like the eyes of a man, and a mouth speaking pompous or blasphemous words." So this is still talking about the same beast, just giving a little bit more detail. Anyway, so let's just quickly recap before I go further to make sure we're on the same page. We know that the woman riding the beast represents a church. She's decked out in gold, so she's very rich. She drinks the blood from the saints, so we know that she's a persecuting power. She rides the beast, which means she governs the nation or the kingdom, so that we have a church governing a nation. The beast represents a kingdom, so we know that the kingdom must be ruled by the woman. We know that the beast is imperial Rome, reigning from 168 BC to 476 AD. We know that the power predicted to come after that was to reign for a short time. Daniel gives the exact years, but I'm getting to that later. Papal Rome reigned from 538 AD to 1798 AD, which was a total of 1260 years. That'll be important for later. We know Papal Rome is the 7th, and we know from Revelation that the 7th is also the 8th, and the 8th is described as going into perdition, and is also known as the mark of the beast, or the antichrist. Daniel also provides more clues and information about the beast, which was in the verses I lifted above, but I will recap again. Daniel 7, it was different from all the other beasts that were before it. It had 10 horns. I was considering the horns, and there was another horn, a little one, coming up among them, before whom 3 of the first horns were plucked out by the roots. And there in this horn were eyes like the eyes of a man, and a mouth speaking pompous words. So we know that the beast that this woman is riding, Imperial Rome, had a little horn coming out and spoke pompous or blasphemous words. So now we're kind of getting to be able to identify this. Daniel 7:24 says, "The 10 horns are 10 kings, who shall arise from this kingdom, and another shall rise after them. He shall be different from the first ones, and shall subdue 3 kings. He shall speak pompous words against the Most High, shall persecute the saints of the Most High, and shall intend to change times and the law. Then the saints shall be given into his hand for a time, times, and half a time." This chapter, or this verse I just read from Daniel 7:24 has a lot of information in it, so I'll unpack it slowly. The first part says 10 kingdoms will arise from this kingdom. So what 10 kingdoms arose from Imperial Rome? Well, that would be 1, Germany, 2, France, 3, Switzerland, 4, Portugal, 5, Italy, 6, Spain, 7, England, 6, the Vandals, 9, I don't know how to pronounce this, but Heruli, and 10, the Ostrogoths. And then it says, back to the verse, that this next power will be different from the other ones. That's because, well, I'll get to that later. Then it says, the incoming power will subdue 3 kings. That's why we no longer have the Vandals, the Ostrogoths, and the Heruli, because they were subdued by this power. We also know, based on that verse, that it will persecute Christians, and Daniel also confirms that. It says this power will speak pompous or blasphemous words, and blasphemy means to say that you're God when you're not. So then it says this power will intend to change the laws, and change the times and the law. What law was changed by the incoming power of 538, which was the papacy, to 1798? Well, we know that even the church admits it. If you open up the Catholic Roman Catholic handbook, it openly admits that they changed the Sabbath from Saturday to Sunday. And this is very important because they did that in order to appease the pagans at the time, and that's why we see a lot of pagan influence in the Christian religions. Take Easter, for example. If it were truly just based off pure Christianity, then the day would not change. Jesus rose on whatever day, and it would stay the same every year. But that's not the case. Pagans, are known for worshiping the sun, and that's why, the day of Easter changes according to, the different things of the sun, like the solstice and the equinox. That's why the day changes every year. And also, if you look at the name Easter, that derives from a pagan goddess named Ishtar. Easter, Ishtar, and Ishtar is the goddess of fertility. That's where we get the rabbits and the eggs from, because, bunnies are known for, rapidly reproducing, and, eggs are a symbol of babies and fertility. So on that day, they'd usually have rampant orgies. If you look at Christmas, the same thing. December 25th, the whole daylight savings, solstice, and equinox thing. That's why they picked that day, when really, from the Bible, we know that Jesus was born during the time of the harvest, which has nothing to do with December. But anyway, so they changed the date from Saturday to Sunday. They said that the divine power of the Catholic Church gave them the right to do so. And people to this day have just followed it because it's been tradition. Also, the law, that was the times that they changed. And the law that they changed was the Ten Commandments. The Ten Commandments are the same in the Bible, but the ones that the Roman Catholics follow are different. They took out the one about not bowing down to graven images, because they still have their Mary statues, and they don't want to be condemned for that. They also split up, in order to make up for that, taking that out, they split up one of the commandments into two commandments. They took thou shalt not covet, which means to want what your neighbor has or be jealous for what someone else has, and they split up into two. They said thou shalt not covet your neighbor's possessions, cattle, wealth, and they split it in the second one, thou shalt not covet your neighbor's wife either. So that's how they got away with that, and still keeping the Ten Commandments. Yeah, so this, back to the Antichrist, this power was different from the others because this was not just a political power, and this is differentiating this power from the other ones like Egypt and Assyria and Medo-Persia and Greece. This power was different from those because this was not just a political power but also religious power. And the last part of this verse that I read before says, then the saints shall be given into his hand for a time, times, and half a time. Now most people are just like, what does that mean? Well, it's quite simple actually. In Bible language, a time is 1 year. Times is 2 years, and half a time is half a year. And in Bible symbolism, they use 1 day to represent 1 year. So when they say, I don't know, because in prophecy they use days instead of years, just uses for symbolism. So if they had 1 day, that would be representative of 1 year. So we know that we're dealing with a time, a times, and half a time. So that's 1 year, 2 years, and half a year. So that's 3.5 years. And if you take that into days, you'll see that 1 year, the time is approximately 365 days. 2 years would be 365 times 2, and half a year would be approximately like 180. So if you add up 365, 365, 365, and 180, you get approximately 1260. And the reason why it's not exactly 1260 is because the calendar is a little bit different. They took 365, but they took it's really based off a 360 year instead of 365 year, because they took an average of 30 days per month rather than the 30 and 31. Every other month is 30 and 31. They just took an average of 30 when they were making this. So, adding 360, 360, 360, and 180, you get 1260. And this is reference to the part of the verse where it says that this power will reign for a short amount of time. That was in Revelation. Now in Daniel, it's telling you specifically how long this power will last. It's saying it will last for 1260 days or 1260 years. And it's interesting, if you look at the papacy, you'll notice that it was established in 538 AD, and this political power, not, this what we have today, the political power, ended in 1798. And if you figure out how many years are between that, you'll realize it's 1260. So the Bible was accurate in predicting how long this would last. And we know that we still have the papacy today, but back then it was different. It was more of a political power. Today it's more of just like kind of religious thing. What happened in 1798 was some French general. I'm not too familiar with all this history, but some French general came and imprisoned the Pope and whatnot, and then it fell for a while, and then after a while it came back. So yeah, I'm gonna explain. I'll get all to that a little bit later, but so we know that the 8th, which we're talking about, the mark of the beast, they said it's the same. The 7th is also the 8th, so it's like, well, why differentiate the 7th from the 8th if it's the same thing? Well, for a couple of reasons. The 7th was papal Rome, a mixture of religious and political power. Oh, sorry, let me start with the 6th. The 6th we know was imperial Rome. The one that was written during John's time when he received the vision, he was in imperial Rome, which is purely political. Then the 7th was papal Rome, which was a mix of religious and political power. And the 8th, which is also the same as the 7th, the papacy is a purely religious power. So they're slightly different. From each one went from purely political to a mixture to purely religious. So the Bible actually predicted also that the papacy would fall and then it would rise again. In Revelation 13, it says, And I saw one of the heads of the beast as if it were wounded to death, and then as if it were wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed. So that's talking about the deadly wound that the papacy received when it fell in 1798, and then it says the deadly wound was healed, so it was reestablished. So that was the end of the political papacy, and then the papacy was reestablished. Go back to my notes real quick. Alright, so we're going to move on to Revelation 13, verse 4, and it says, And the dragon, okay, this is still talking about the mark of the beast and the antichrist, And the dragon gave him his power and his seat and great authority. So what does the dragon do? The dragon gave the beast his power and his seat. Message. Sorry, that's my phone. The dragon gave him his power and his seat and great authority. And they worshipped the dragon which gave power unto the beast, and they worshipped the beast, saying, Who is like the beast? Who is able to make war with him? And there was given unto him a mouth, speaking great things and blasphemies, and power was given unto him to continue 42 months. Pause. 42 months, if you count the days, is the same as the time times and half a time. It's just phrased differently. 42 months is the exact same as saying 1260 years. Because 42 months, if you take it by the days, you'll realize it's 1260 days. So, resuming. And he opened his mouth in blasphemy against God, to blaspheme his name, and his tabernacle, and all that dwell in heaven. And it was given unto him to make war with the saints, and to overcome them, and power was given to him over all kindreds, tongues, and nations, and all that dwell upon the earth shall worship him, whose names are not written in the book of life of the Lamb, slain from the foundation of the world. If any man have an ear, let him hear. It is important at this point to realize that the dragon refers to the devil. If you read on further in the chapter, it explains that, they specifically say that the dragon represents Satan. So Satan gave who their power, seat, and authority? Well, we know that we're talking about the papacy at this point. Don't get me wrong at this point saying that the Pope is a Satan worshiper or anything. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying that Satan is definitely behind it, using this as a way to draw people away from the truth, and he's going to use this in the end time to do his final attempt to draw people away from God and claim worship as his own and draw worship away from Jesus. So I'm not saying that the Pope is the devil or anything like that. Anyway, so this is important to know about the dragon, because the antichrist is anything that is against Christ. And who is more against Christ than the devil? The first verse that I read before says, "And they worshiped the dragon, which gave power unto the beast." The devil is definitely working through the papacy to be against God. Antichrist can mean against God or anything that tries to take the place of him. Do you know that the Pope calls himself, infallible, and that he's as if he were God? That's blasphemy, because blasphemy is saying you are God when you are not. Remember that I said at the very beginning of this video that the beast will be assigned the number 666. The process of, figuring out the numbers in someone's name is taking Roman numerals, which are also some of them are the same as letters, and like for example, the letter I, is the same as number 1, and a V, is the same as 5. So if we take the Pope's name, and it's not Pope, his original name in the Latin that it's inscribed on his little, I don't know what it's called, his little hat thing, it's Vicarius Filii Dei. That is the official name of his position, which means Vicar of the Son of God. That's his official name. So when you assign letters, using the Roman numerals, remember that V's and U's are interchangeable. You can see this often. A lot of monuments, back in the day, they use V's instead of U's. So if we count up how many letters correspond with Vicarius Filii Dei, you'll see that the V in Vicarius has 5 because it's a V. The I is 1. The C has 100. A, there's no number equivalent, so it's 0. R, same thing, 0. The I is 1. The U is the same as the V, so that's 5. The S, there's no equivalent, so that's 0. Filii, F is 0 because there's no equivalent. I is 1. L actually represents 50. I is 1. I is 1. And then Dei. D is 500. E is 0. And I is 1. If you add them up, you'll see that Vicarius adds up to 112. Filii adds up to 53. And Dei adds up to 501. And if you add those all together, you know what you get. You get 666. So this is a distinguishing mark of the beast. Remember, the verses said that this power, he will speak against the Most High and oppress his holy people and try to change the set times and the laws. Well, we already know that he was a persecuting power, speaking against, oppressing his holy people, speaking against the Most High, pretending to be God, and try to change the times and the laws, the 10 Commandments, and the day of worship from Saturday to Sunday. In Revelation, it talks about how you either have the mark of the beast or you have the seal of God. Now, don't assume that I'm saying the people who worship on Sunday have the mark of the beast. I'm not saying that at all. No one has the mark of the beast yet, and no one has the seal of God yet. That's coming. Those two things are reserved for the end times, right before Jesus comes again. So, there will come a time, though, in the last days when people have to choose between God's seal and the mark of the beast. But, that's a lot. That's a whole other sermon. Let me see where I'm at right now. Oh, you might... Well, okay. I'll say, the mark of the beast, we know what that is. 666, the papacy, and the Sunday worship. Now, you might... Okay, well, what's the seal of God, then? Well, Ezekiel 20, verse... something... I lost it. Oh, okay. It says, I gave them my... 11, I think. I gave them my statutes and made known to them my rules, by which if a person does them, he shall live. Moreover, I gave them my Sabbath as a sign between me and them, that they might know that I am the Lord who sanctifies them. But the house of Israel rebelled against me in the wilderness. And they did not walk in my statutes, but rejected my rules, by which if a person does them, he shall live. And my Sabbaths they greatly profaned. Then I said I would pour out my wrath upon them in the wilderness to make a full end of them. So the seal of God is the Sabbath. A lot of people, they don't think that the Sabbath matters. Like, okay, well, Sunday, Sabbath, who cares? Well, God cares. I mean, why else would he put it in his 10 Commandments if it didn't matter? He would just say, worship me on whatever day. But no, he said, and listen to this key word. He doesn't just say in the 4th commandment, keep the Sabbath day holy. He says, remember the Sabbath day and keep it holy. Why would he say remember? It's like, okay, people forget to go to church, so that's why I have to remember. No, he says remember because, this is cool, because God knew, like, he's omnipotent, he's omniscient, so he knew that he knew what was going to happen. Like, he knew that the day was going to be changed and that many people would forget that the Sabbath matters, so he said, please remember the Sabbath day and keep it holy. Back in the Garden of Eden, he made everything in 6 days, then on the 7th day, the Sabbath, he rested from all his work. He made that day special for his creation and for him. The Sabbath isn't meant for God, it's meant for us. Like, that's our date day with God. Like, God wants to have a relationship with us, and that's like his holy special day to spend time with each other. Like, people in a relationship, they have like their date, that's a really special time for them to get to know each other, get more intimate, and like, it would be really rude to just be like, oh, I don't want to hang out on that day. So it's really important to God, and even if we don't understand, why it's so important, the fact that God says so should be reason enough. God's authority alone should be reason enough. And phone, seriously? Sorry, guys. So let's go back to the beast and the Sunday mark and the mark of the beast and whatnot. It says, from the Bible, the beast causes all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bound, to receive a mark on their right hand or on their foreheads, and that no man might be able to buy or sell unless he has that mark, or the name of the beast, or the number of his name. Here is wisdom. Let him that has understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666. So, it's saying that without this, you're not going to be able to buy or sell. So, like, it's going to be very difficult in the end times to be able to decide between, okay, God's word, which says Sabbath is the day of worship, versus human tradition, which says, hey, Sunday's just as good, it's no big deal. And it's going to be very hard to make that decision because, number one, human tradition is very powerful. Most people don't like to give up their tradition just because it's the way it's always been. But also because we will not be able to buy or sell if you don't have the beast's mark. Believe it or not, in the last days before Jesus comes, there will be a Sunday law. And you may say, that'll never happen. America is the land of religious freedom. But the Bible has prophesied before and has been right, and it will be right again. If it can predict the rise of all these different kingdoms and when they'll fall and how long they'll be around, I'm pretty sure the Bible is reliable enough to say that something else will happen. One of my professors explained to me, how this Sunday law might happen, and he said it probably will be disguised more of like a political thing than more of a religious thing. Right now, there's a lot of economic crisis in the United States, all over the world. I just heard some things about, I forget what country it was. I want to say Argentina, but I don't know if that's correct. That there's been a couple of them, though, not just one, where the government seized all the citizens' money in the banks and just wouldn't give them access to their money. And then they super hyperinflated everything, and they gave them their money back, and it was like worth nothing. And I was talking to one of my professors who knows this one person who is high up there with like CEOs and all these different people who have like information about like the economy and money, and they're like, there's an impending crash coming, and the United States is $1 zillion in debt, and this economy is not doing good. And so his theory, this is not from the Bible or anything, but his theory about how the Sunday law would come into play would be, hypothetically, the United States goes into an economic crash, and so they create this like government plan where everyone needs to work 6 days a week to stimulate the economy, and donate some of their money to the cause of rebuilding America, and And also they'll require people to work Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And the people were like, no, the Sabbath is holy, it's reserved for me and time with God. They'll be looked at as like anti-patriotic, anti-American, and they'll be persecuted for being traitors to the United States and all these. That's just his theory. So it'd be masked more as a political reason rather than a religious reason. But that's just a theory. But yeah, it's important to be aware of these things in the Bible because when they start coming, you need to be aware and be knowledgeable. The last days are coming up very shortly. We're living the last days. I'll make another video about why that's true, but this one's getting a little bit long, so more to come. Bye.